All right, we have Lynanda in the middle. You are the mother of Nikki. This is your daughter on your left.
Yes.
And Nikki's daughter, Trinity, on my left. So Trinity, Lynanda, and Nikki. This is 3 generations of your family.
Yes.
Tell me a little, where do we start? I guess, Lynanda, tell me a little bit about your family and your life, and we'll just let it unfold somehow.
All right. I was born to my mother. My mother had me when she was 15. And
where was that?
She had me in Minnesota.
Okay.
And my mother had been adopted, and she was very much a narcissist with Munchausen by proxy. And my brother, I have a younger brother, we had a very abusive, neglectful life, and my mother liked to leave us different places, and I never really understood why. We never went to a school for a whole year. It was always broke up into a few months here, a few months there. And then we always went back to my grandparents' house when she got tired of being a mom and she wanted to go do other things. Our house was always very violent, and there was a lot of abuse. And my brother got the worst of it physically, but I got the worst of it sexually. And I had 12 stepfathers, and they were all abusive. And
12 stepfathers.
Yes.
Your mom didn't marry 12 times.
Yes.
She did?
She did.
She married 12?
She actually married 13 times, but she married one person twice.
Got it.
And I was just very confused about our life. There was no stability, and we were never really allowed to be a part of the family activities except for pictures. And then we would go back to our rooms. We were like my mother's trophies. And when I would go to her and complain about the mistreatment from the places where she left us or from her boyfriends, her response to me was always, "I don't know, Linda, there's something about you that just pisses people off." And I never knew what that meant, but I learned how to make people love me. And I learned how to get love from people by anticipating their needs and trying to fulfill their needs and becoming useful. And the places that Mom would leave us, it was usually for me to clean house or to help or to do whatever the people needed me to do. Then things kind of changed when I was 12. My mother wanted to go, and she just didn't want to have kids anymore. And she had been in the habit of, she liked to take me to the mental institution, take me to the hospital when she had no place to leave me. And it was okay with me because there I could talk to people, and we did ceramics and crafts, and there were other kids. And that was probably the only time where I felt normal, is when I was in a hospital. But each time then I would get out, and I would go back to my mom, and I would get all messed up again.
What was the problem that your mom was having? It wasn't drugs, because drugs weren't really around back then.
She was a severe alcoholic.
Okay.
And she was just very mentally unstable.
Yeah.
Everything had to be about her. She was very abusive to my grandmother growing up, too. And my grandmother was probably my only stable role model in my life. And it was very difficult to watch my mother, who I loved dearly because I had been her golden child and my brother was a scapegoat. So I was very trauma bonded with her. I felt as a child it was my need to protect her because somehow I knew that she wasn't right. And so when she would tell lies, I would just let her tell them because I didn't want to confront her. And every time it would be a new town, a new man, a new storyline. And I never really knew who I was. I just knew that I wasn't wanted and that I had to do something to be accepted and to be needed.
Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. After my recent loss, I was completely thrown off. I couldn't sleep, my mind was scattered, had a hard time working and focusing, so I started seeing a therapist. And just having a space to talk with someone who helps you see things from a different perspective helps you to feel grounded again. And slowly I started coming back to myself. And that's what therapy gives you, the ability to meet yourself with patience and compassion, especially when things don't go the way you expected. I think therapy is one of the best investments a person can make in themselves. BetterHelp makes starting therapy easier. You just fill out a short questionnaire and get matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. And if it's not the right fit, you can switch anytime at no extra cost. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, it's a platform you can trust. Click on the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/soft white underbelly to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Thank you for watching.
When I was 12 years old, like I said, my mother wanted to go to California and she just didn't have time for kids. And so, because I wanted to be with my mother so badly, she told me that we were going to go to California and that all I had to do was go with her to this office and tell people that my brother was not a good person, my brother was in trouble all the time, and that my brother hurt me. And because I wanted to be with my mother, and because I knew those places were not that bad, and I thought my brother could go and he could make ceramics, and I did what she told me to. I went and I told the people that. And the next morning, when I got up, ready to leave for California with her, I found out she had already left. And now they were coming to get my brother, and nobody knew but me. And that was probably the last time I really seen my brother.
What kind of things did you say your brother was doing?
Spraying silly string at people, not listening to Grandma and Grandpa, fighting with me, and just nodding whenever Mom said anything.
I mean, that's typical childhood stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. And so they came and they took my little brother away. And he went to Wilmer State Hospital. And whenever they decided that he could come home, my mom was gone. Nobody knew where my mom was. And so my brother left there with another boy, and they set out to find my mom, and they stole a car, and they got to Rapid City and ran a roadblock. Now these boys could hardly see over the steering wheel, and they severely hurt a policeman and a couple other. So that was when my brother went to jail, and he is also a half-breed, and he went to an Indian prison. He ended up going to prison, and he did not get out till he was 36 years old because he was involved in a riot as well, where four guards were killed. So that is a guilt that I've carried with me, that I feel responsible for my brother because he's always been in prison. He gets out and he goes back, and drug addiction and all kinds of things. And, you know, psychopathy runs very deep in our family. So at that point in time, my brother was gone. My grandfather died. Again, another thing that both my brother and I carry guilt for because we feel we killed our grandfather because of that. And so at that point in time, I was 12 years old. I was used to going to bars. I was used to being sexual. I was used to doing all of these things. And my grandpa was dead and my grandma couldn't manage me. So a friend and I left for Oklahoma and we joined the carnival. And when we were on the carnival, I met my husband, and I was 13 then. And he was my protector, and I loved him very much.
How old was he?
He was 28.
And you were 13?
I was 13. And we spent all my teenage years traveling, and I didn't know what we were doing. You know, we were just traveling, hitchhiking, staying in Salvation Armies and places, and he tried to protect me. And you know, I was just a kid, and I fell for the excitement and the love that he showed to me. And of course, he kept me out of public view, which my mother always did too. I never was allowed friends in our household, and we never could participate in any school things or go to church or anything like that. So I never really had friends. So David was my friend. And then when I was 15, I got pregnant. And I called my mom. I called my grandmother, and she got hold of my mom, and I wanted to come home. So my mom came down, and we drove up to Minnesota. And during the drive, I lost my child. And it was just one of those things that we don't talk about. So it's never been talked about, and that's the guilt that I carry. And then the rest of...
Why do you feel guilty for that?
Because it happened in a truck stop. And I just feel like I could have done better. But why do we feel guilt for anything? So after that happened, it wasn't, I guess next I was 18, I got pregnant again with Nicole. And now that she was my pride and joy. The only thing I ever wanted in my life was to be a wife and to be a mother. Because the only thing I ever wanted was love. And I had love. I loved being a mother, but I had to go to work because David just, he couldn't manage to hold a job. He had a lot of problems. And after I had Nikki, I don't know what happened then, but the abuse began. And there had been times he had abused me before, but he always told me that, you know, he'd been in the Vietnam War and he was having flashbacks, and he was always very sorry afterwards. And so I found myself not minding being abused because he couldn't help it. And when you love somebody, you have to love every part of them. So I took the abuse, but I tried to find him help. And nothing ever worked. And so then 2 years later, I got pregnant again, and we had another child, Christopher. He's a beautiful towhead boy. I loved him very much, too. And I went on as a mother and a battered wife. And that's how I lived life for the next, until I was 30 years old. During those years, he was in and out of treatment. He was in prison twice. And he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. And at that time, I didn't know that meant psychopath. And so now I was triangulated between two psychopaths, my mom and my husband. And that was not a very good place to be. And I just had problems coping with everything that was going on and trying to be a good mother. That I started cutting when I was a child, but it got more severe as I got older, and it became just automatic. So when I was beat, I was able to handle it because then I abused myself, and somehow that made it all right for me. And I never realized how twisted my thinking had become. Now, at this time, I was out in the world and I was working, And after I had Christopher, see, I only went to school to the 6th grade because my mom needed a drinking partner, and that's who I was with her. We stayed up late at night, we did whites, we drank, and I just listened to everything she told me. And I didn't know, I thought everybody lived that way because the only other view into anybody's life I ever saw was through TV. And June Cleaver was my hero. And so that's what I tried to model my children after. And it really didn't work very well because they weren't very happy. So anyway, things went on like that till I was 31. And I managed to go to school. I got my nursing degree. I got a degree in psych. So I wanted to be a surgical nurse, but I couldn't do it. So I switched majors over into psychiatric nursing. And in fact, I did my internship at the psych hospital that my brother was placed in to begin with. And I love that. And I did very well. And I also worked restaurant jobs because I had 2 jobs usually. And I did very well in the world. People liked me. And of course, I never told them what my life was like at home. You tend to fantasize. I have fanciful thinking. You know, I romance suicide, and I live in a fairy tale a lot of times because that way I didn't have to see the dysfunction of our life. And I couldn't keep up the charade very long, though. It was just too much for me. And I guess the end of that relationship was in kids were getting older. They were becoming, they were 11 and 12, I think.
I was 9 when Dad left.
9. So 9 and 11.
No, I was 9.
Yeah, Christopher, 9 and 7. And of course, along with the cutting, I drank too much. And it wasn't drinking that was the problem, it was the going out and the dancing. That was my big stress reliever, going out and dancing. And I was safe because I had my husband, so I could dance and do whatever I wanted to. Nobody was going to hurt me. And that was not a very good coping mechanism either. So I had no good coping mechanisms. They were all self-destructive. I was very suicidal, too, along with the cutting. And when things got to be too much, I took too many pills on purpose. And so now I think there's something wrong with me. And of course, I've been on Prozac. I was diagnosed at 16 with severe generational depression, or manic depressant. No, not, that was later. Then later on, it was manic depressant. And I have all these mental health diagnoses. So of course, they had me on Prozac. And it was just getting harder and harder for me to bear the abuse that was going on. And when the kids got older, I was afraid for them because he had never hurt them that I know of. He had been inappropriate with them as far as watching Stephen King movies, listening and dancing with my daughter too late into the evening, but I had no control over that. And like when I was in nursing school, he liked to come in and tell me as I was laying down to go to sleep, as soon as you go to sleep, I'm going to cut your throat. And I had to become numb to that. And he was very violent with a knife. He cut himself several times. One time when he was drunk, he cut his throat in front of the mirror in front of me. One time he came home with an ice pick in his leg, and I had to sew it up. So as they're getting older, I can't let my kids see this. As much as they love my kids, I had to do something. So I told him, I'm going to go out to Nevada to my mother, and when I come back, I need you to be gone. And it was very hard, hardest thing I've ever had to do at that point. And I left, and I went to Nevada to my mom, which was not a good thing because there's no support there. It's just go to the bar, drink your troubles away, go find another man. And I just couldn't hold myself together very well. So next I met another man, and he had a job. He'd always had a job. And so right away, I knew that I was in love. And
Criteria. Sorry.
a job, yes, I have high standards. So we got married, and it was a great wedding. And right away, then I got pregnant, and I didn't know it, but I was so happy when I did. So then I had Caleb, and I had Caleb in Utah. We were living in Nevada at that time at Wendover, and I was working at the Peppermill Casino. I was the assistant manager for food and beverage. And so I didn't want that lifestyle anymore after I had Caleb. And so we decided to move back to a small town in Nebraska to raise our kids in a small community. We did. I wanted another child because I didn't want Caleb to be alone because the other two were 10 and 12. So right away, I got pregnant again.
I was 14 when you had Caleb.
Okay.
No, you were 14 when you had Paige.
Paige, 13, 14.
So I got pregnant right away again, and it was a girl. I was so happy. I was so happy I wanted another girl. And I kept that to myself. Nobody knew that. And that was I didn't know it at the time, but that was the beginning of the end of that marriage for me, because I didn't know at the time either, but having two children back to back is not really a good idea at my age, in my 30s, and I had a very severe depression. And again with the suicide, and I had trouble with my memories, and it was just, I couldn't handle life anymore, and I stayed in bed. And I'm not really sure how it came about, because I don't remember. But I ended up going to a hospital and having ECT treatments for my depression. Nobody should ever have that, because I couldn't do it. They only did 3, and I thought I was dead. And I have no memories from a time frame of what I did. There's just nothing there. So during that time, he didn't want to be married anymore, so he divorced me. That was tough. I knew that I could not have my 2 younger children with me, so I wanted joint custody, and we got joint custody. And like I said, there was a time period there, I don't know, I can't remember. The next memory I have is that I'm working now, and my daughter's married. She got married at 16, and she had a son, which I missed. I was there in the delivery room, but I have no memory of it. So then I moved to Scottsbluff.
Why do you think you have no memory of?
Because of the ECTs. They take out a couple years before, a couple years after, and then the time.
She was doing you did the ECDs when I was pregnant with Devin, because I took you to some of them.
Yes, Nikki took me.
So I was staying with you and the kids.
And it did not help my depression at all. So at this time, after I was able to get myself acclimated again, I knew I had to do something. So I moved to Scottsbluff, Nebraska. I got a job, and I started over. And I was visiting, my kids were visiting. We had joint custody. And I opened a ceramic business. And I was starting to get things back together again and doing well. And again, I met another man. And this one I thought was my perfect dream man, because he was a preacher. And I'm not sure why, but I've always had deep faith. And I know when I was small, I could see the angels and the fairies, and they kept me company. And I always carried that with me. And also Archangel Michael always was my protector. And so I had my faith. And he was a preacher. He was called Preacher Man on a Bike. So he had that wild side, but yet that sacred side, perfect for me. Only it wasn't perfect because I did not know. He opened me up to a world that I had no idea about. He had a proclivity for young girls, and I did not know this. And during my time at my ceramics studio, I injured myself. I had been lifting, and I blew some discs out of my back. And so I had to be put on some pain medication. And between the pain medication and the psych meds, it did a real number on my liver. So I went and had surgery, and I had fusions. And after the surgery, it took about 6 months for me to learn how to walk again. And I had, of course, sold my store and everything and moved out into the country. That is when I lost control of this relationship. So I did not know what was going on and what things that were happening, but all of the people that I thought were his friends, they weren't friends. They were all drug addicts. And he was involved in the underworld that I knew nothing about. And while I'm entertaining these people thinking they're church members, they're not. They're drug addicts. And I had no idea. And while I'm serving them drinks and hors d'oeuvres, they're going through my jewelry and everything else. So I was finally able to get away from him, and I got my own place, and things were going pretty good. And then one of his friends asked me, she said she wanted to get off drugs, and I'm the only one that she knew that, wasn't involved in that, and could she come and stay with me? Again, another huge mistake, because you don't let a heroin addict into your house to get him clean. So one night when I was taking her to the bar, because I didn't want her to get picked up, I took her and told her I'd pick her back up. I went and picked her back up, or on the way to go pick her back up. It's about midnight. I come around the corner to the stoplight, and when the light turned green, I went, and I got pulled over. I couldn't understand what I got pulled over for. So he came up to the car and asked me if I'd been drinking. And I said, yeah, about 8 o'clock I had a drink with dinner. And he gave me a breathalyzer, and he told me that I was over the limit. And I'm confused about how could that be. And then he's looking in my car, and he pulls out a baggie of meth. So now I'm very confused. And he takes me to jail, and they book me. And I get released in the morning, and of course I'm very upset, and I don't know what to do. I had to put up a $40,000 bond. So right away I went and got an attorney, gave him $5,000, and he told me that there's really nothing he can do because Nebraska is a zero-tolerance state, and I would be going to prison for 4 years. So at that point in time, I really was losing it. I knew I couldn't go to prison. I'm not prison material. And so I did the only thing I knew to do, and that was run. So I couldn't bring my kids into this. I had nobody to ask for help. I knew I was in over my head, but I had nobody to ask for help. And so I went to Wyoming to think about what could I do. And then when I called back to talk to my attorney to tell him I couldn't decide, he told me, well, it doesn't matter. It's too late. They've already put a warrant out for me. So now I had to go on the run for a while until I could try to straighten my life out. And if you've ever been a person who's not street smart and you're hiding, it's not going to end up good for you. because I got wrapped up in the mafia. I got wrapped up in corruption. And I was in way over my head. And when you see the underbelly of humanity, the rules are all different. The rules are all different. The police don't abide by the same rules. No, nobody does. And I didn't know where to go when the police are the ones that are abusing me and using me. Where do I go for safety? But it was better than being with the mafia, because they had taken me, they gave me safety. They took me to their house and gave me shelter and built me back up, but they only wanted me to go to Arizona with them and to find other girls like me that needed help so they could bring them back to Nebraska and help them like they helped me. I don't know what happened in Arizona, but I suddenly snapped to what was happening. And I knew I had to get away from this. I knew what was happening. So the only thing I knew to do was go back to Nebraska and turn myself in. So I went back to Nebraska, and I never could understand why they knew. Everybody was always one step ahead of me. Everybody was. When I was trying to get away from them in Colorado from the mafia, they knew everything I was doing. I couldn't get to my car, somebody'd be there. I'd drive to the gas station, somebody'd be there to direct me back home. And so I went and I turned myself in. Of course, they picked me up before I was able to turn myself in. And that's when I found out the truth, that I had been in a corrupt town and that I was on the wrong side. And everybody who I thought were my friends were not my friends. They were CIs taken from a prison in Wyoming and brought over to this town. I stayed in jail, and again, I cracked underneath the pressure because I knew I couldn't do jail. I didn't know how to survive. And so I cut my wrists, and you don't do that. So they took me to solitary confinement, and they kept me in solitary confinement. I don't remember the times, and I don't know. I remember at one point in time, I'd been in there a long time, and no clothes, no glasses, no nothing. And I was begging them, please let me out of here. And one day the sergeant and the city commissioner and one of the officers come up and opened my cell. And I came out of the cell crawling out. I was naked. And I remember hanging on to the city commissioner's feet and begging him, please let me out of here. My children need me. I didn't do this. And he looked at the sergeant and he said, she's not ready yet, and kicked me back in. I was in there 97 days before they let me out. And when I came back, though, I had respect. That, when I came back, things were different. And I felt so sorry for the girls in there. Their stories were horrible. The abuse, the drug addiction, I just wanted to mother everybody. And at the end, when I got out I was in there a year, and I was found innocent, and I was not guilty. And that was discovered through the tape. I had been set up. And so they released me. Of course, it was 4 days after I was found innocent. But I was released, and Nikki come and got me from Minnesota and brought me back up to her house. I had no idea. About anything. In fact, I couldn't come out of the bedroom when I got to her house. I stayed in the closet for a long time. I couldn't come out of the bedroom. I couldn't be around people. I couldn't leave the house. I would get lost. I had no sense of direction. I couldn't function. So I called the jail up and I talked to them and I said, something's wrong with my head. I can't remember how to fix my hair. I can't remember anything. And they told me it would be okay. It's effective solitary confinement. So that went on for a while, and then my mother died, and I wanted to reunite with my children. So right before my mother died, I planned a family reunion, and I skipped a little part. In between there, I went to day treatment to try to figure out what was going on with me, and they diagnosed me with I don't know, some stupid diagnosis, but it didn't help me at all. So I ended up going to Florida because Nikki was in a lot of abuse, and I just couldn't be around abuse anymore. I couldn't watch my daughter be abused. And so I met somebody, a cab driver that I thought was my friend, and two other people. And so I decided I had nowhere to go, so I thought, well, I'll go to Florida for a little while because my kids don't want me back home yet. So I went to Florida, and when I got down there, I realized the people I with were not good people. And I had a total, complete breakdown. I mean, total, complete breakdown. In my brain, I just seen millions of me running everywhere. And I ended up I got Baker acted. No, I didn't get Baker acted then. I went to a hospital. That's where they diagnosed me with multiple personality disorder. So I got released from there because they found a treatment program. At that point in time, there wasn't very many diagnoses like that. It was kind of a rare diagnosis. But there was a pilot program in Hollywood, Florida. So I was able to get into that. And I don't know how. I had no money. I had nothing, but they accepted me. And I was there for 30 days. And it was actually deprogramming. They deprogrammed me from the abuser values that I had been given as a child. You know, that I'm no good, that I'm not worthy.
Was it successful?
It was successful in educating me about my diagnosis. At least now I know. Now I know.
Using therapy?
Not therapy, no. Teaching me flashback management, teaching me how to find my sense of self and how to have boundaries. And so when I got out of treatment, I was supposed to have a therapist, a 12-step group, and a church or some kind of support. Well, I had nothing. I went to churches to try to look for support, and all they would offer me was exorcisms. That was bizarre. But then it got me looking up spirit attachment and demonic possessions.
Where was this?
Florida.
Florida. Okay.
Right. And then I got really sick, and I had to go to the hospital. And I found out that all those medications had blew out my liver and my pancreas. I was very sick with pancreatitis. And it wasn't very good. My levels were very high. They didn't give me very long. You know, they told me a couple, 2-3 years maybe. So I went home to tell my family. And that's when my mother died. And I told my children, and it just didn't matter. I mean, to me, it just seemed it didn't matter. They went on about things, and they really had no interest in being a support system for me as I did my aftercare, because there's a lot of aftercare you have to do as well. So after my mother died, I got an inheritance. I bought an RV, and I went back to Florida to go back and die because I didn't care. I didn't want to live. And at least I didn't have to do it this time. So I went back to Florida. I was very sick. It was getting to be Christmas, and I was lonely. I was very lonely. And I thought, who in the world would feel the way I feel this Christmas. And then it dawned on me, death row inmates. And so I found addresses of 125 death row inmates. I sent out my testimony in Christmas letters and forgot about it. The next time I went to my post office, I had a bag full of mail. And at this time, I could not function. I lost down to about, 115 pounds. I was skin and bones, and I couldn't eat. All I could do really was just lay and watch Planet Earth. That's the only thing that soothed me. Well, that and plus I used medical marijuana, too. That really helped with my anxiety. So that was a turning point because I got those letters, and oh my God, there was so much love in there for me, to support. And they knew abuse, they knew solitary confinement, they knew these things. And I had just never felt so much support. And I thought, I have a reason to live now. And so I love Leah from Scripture. And so I created Leah Foundation. And I got a yellow Labrador as my emotional support dog, Leah. And I started a prison ministry. And I did this, 15 years. And it was wonderful. And the love I felt was amazing. And I needed something to cover up the pain I felt from losing my children, because I still in the back of my head, if I get my stuff together, and if I can be successful and get back to who I was before all this abuse, or better than that, then my children will come home. So that started the next leg of my journey, and I created monthly Leah letters, and I wrote individual letters, and I sent pictures, and I started going to places like the zoo, and then I'd write about every experience I had and tell them, so they could come to the zoo with me. And I was very happy about things. And then I went home again. And this was in 2014, I believe. And my other three, they did not want to open the door. And now I'm well enough to be able to handle that because I love my kids unconditionally. And so I knew I had to leave. And so I did, sadly. But I didn't know how I would support myself because I only made $800 a month. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? So I did what I did when I was a little girl. I found the loneliest, saddest people I could find and started taking care of them. So I started... I went to Casadega Spiritual Community too, and they taught me spirituality, how to energy, how to clean my chakras, how to keep my energy clean and balanced mentally. But that still wasn't enough either. So I started living with people who had no children of their own, and I became their children. And I lived with 13 different families, and I learned how to do holistic cancer treatment. And then I decided I wanted to get further education, and I became a holistic mental health nurse practitioner. And I learned holistically how to deal with your anxiety, how to deal with your flashbacks. And when Peter Walker put out his book, Complex PTSD, that saved my life. It made so much sense. Manage your flashbacks, and you can deal with your memories, and then you will have them no more coming up, terrorizing you. And it worked. It worked. So I was able to build myself up and feel good about myself again. And that's about the time that I go up north again with Nikki, and I guess her story probably takes over then, because I have been living very well since that time. For the past 5 years, I've lived by myself in a camper, totally independent, nobody abusing me, nobody controlling me. with my dog. Leah died, but I've since got another dog, and 4 feral cats. So I always said we're the unwanted family. And I've been very happy. And no medication, absolutely no medication. My health has been regained. I have really no diagnoses anymore. And I feel great most of the time. Learning how to manage anxiety without medication has been a challenge, but very rewarding, because once I learned to regulate my nervous system, I can self-talk. And when I had my breakdown, I lost that inner communication. That's what happens with DID. And so I regained the inner connection, and I've been thriving ever since. And one other part, though, I want to mention, too, with my prison ministry, I became friends with a person in Coalinga State Hospital for Sexual Predators. And he's been my lifeline the whole time. He has been there, always been there for me. And I was a spiritual advisor at an execution in Ohio. That was very difficult for me to understand, and it was because of the help of the patients at Coalinga that got me through that. They have been my voice of reason. They brought me back to mental balance, and I just find that amazing. And so now I came back here to California to go to Coalinga to teach them about flashbacks, because nobody should be stuck in that.
The patient that you became
Yes.
friends with was a sexual
Yes.
predator?
Yes. He was he'd done his time, but in California, you can get a civil commit, and that's where everybody in Coalinga are civil commits.
What is a civil commit?
They've done their time, but some testing decides that they should still be out of society, so they're put into the state hospital.
Do you feel like he was healed?
I do. I do. I don't want to make a judgment call on any of that, right or wrong, or where they should be. All I care about is nobody should suffer with flashbacks when help's available. And I want to teach them this. And they're all going to watch today. They're going to watch the show. And I just, it worked for me to get to know these men, because what's the difference between me and a person who has committed a crime or even a sexual predator? The only difference between me and them is they act out, I act inward. You know, we're all only one step away from going to prison, one mishap, one mistake. You know, it can't be, I don't want to be judgmental. You know, trauma really messes with your brain, but I don't think people should suffer either. So that's why I come out to California, and you're the one that got me here.
Let me ask you one last question, then we'll get down to Nikki's
Yes.
and Trinity's story. What would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in your
Love. Don't close your heart. And that's what I needed, to have my heart muscle expand, and that's what the prison ministry did for me. Because if I'd have closed my heart, I wouldn't have lived.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Now we'll get on to
Yes.
your daughters.
Yes.
So Nikki, we just heard your mom's story.
Yeah.
Now it's your turn. Let's hear your.
Well, it's
Your
my
life
mom,
story.
obviously. I was born in Worthington, Minnesota. Just me and Chris were the only two that have the same, out of my siblings that have the same parents, mom and dad. So it's just Chris and I growing up. It's a little awkward. I kind of feel because like we don't have the same recounts of everything.
Do you think your mom's story was accurate?
No.
See, that's what I always say on my videos. We're getting one person's story. The
Exactly.
siblings or the children or the parents or whatever would have a different story, and the
Right.
truth is somewhere in the middle.
Well, see, and I always say that there's like your version, there's her version, my version, and then what really happened. And then anybody else who's involved too, they have all their own versions that come with it.
It's always the case.
And the truth is really relative because it's up to perception. But let's see. I'm 47 years old now. And my childhood was interesting. We moved around a lot because my dad was I always say because my dad was on the run all the time, and that's pretty, I think, accurate. My childhood had, sorry, Mom, but my childhood did have a lot of abuse in it. Not necessarily like, I was sexually abused my entire childhood, I think, and
By who?
two different uncles I had. One was when I was started when I was very young, and it was a step uncle from one of my grandma's numerous marriages. And then when I was older, my mom, my uncle Bill, my mom's brother, molested me.
And Mom, how do you feel about that? I mean, did you not know this was going on?
No, well, at the time when the step uncle molested her, I did take her to the doctor and had it confirmed, and the police, but they thought it would be a better thing to not press charges at her age. So we didn't do anything further.
And then, let's see, but I was just very sexual as a child. Like that was, I remember there ever being a time in my life that I wasn't.
That's actually a symptom of childhood sexual abuse, hypersexuality.
Yeah. Some girls become promiscuous, some become not, like, we're very anti-sex, and I became promiscuous. Everything was about sex.
It goes one way or the other, it seems.
I don't remember ever not being like I remember people telling me when I was like 12 years old, you're just so sexy. I'm like, you know, but, and I dated older guys my entire life. I mean, not my entire life, but when I was that age, I did. But everybody in the whole world was older than I was. And I started drinking and smoking pot when I was like in 5th grade. Ironically, because of boys. And I tried to kill myself when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
With what?
Lady Bic. It was a little tiny razor. Like I was just.
When you had the drug or the alcohol poisoning.
Yeah, that wasn't until later. Yeah, that was when I was like 6. That was like 14.
Okay.
But we lived in Nebraska at the time. I drank too much and I got alcohol poisoning, but they had laced the alcohol with something, and I was in the hospital. They had to pump my stomach and everything, and I went to treatment for the first time when I was that age. And they sent me to an adult treatment center, which was probably not a very good idea, because I just learned how to do it differently and lie better about it. And I feel sorry for my mom. I was a hell of a teenager. I was angry. I was a daddy's girl, and my dad wasn't around, so I was very, very angry. I was angry about being molested. I was angry about everything. And I wanted to be crazy. I really did. In treatment, they gave me this pin called Psycho Bitch from Hell, and I loved that. I was all for that. I still, to this day, fight with the shock value thing. I like shock value. And I will do a lot for shock value. Mm-hmm. And my biggest fear in the world is to be bored to death. So you can imagine that when I do get bored, I will create something to not be bored with. Although I've learned to, maybe not go quite to the extreme. I did really good though after I had my son. I got married when I was 16. I had my son when I was 18. And for a while I did really good. I went to college. I didn't drink. I drank heavily like on Christmas and my birthday. And the rest of the time I didn't do any drugs. I went to college. We moved to Minnesota to be close to my grandma, because I was very close to my grandma. She was like my best friend.
You were born where?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, and you moved away?
Yep. We moved, like I always say, like every 3 months when I was a kid.
And then you moved back to Minnesota?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When I was 13, we moved to Nebraska for good. That's when Mom married my stepdad Ed and had Caleb and Paige. And that's when I started having trouble, though, is when I was acting out and they sent me to treatment. And I went to a foster home for a while. And then all of a sudden it was just I needed to be grown up. So I quit doing all that stuff and I became grown up, and I took care of the kids while she had her ECT treatments done, and I had my son, and I was just the adult after that. And we're good. I went to college. I got I'm one class short of 2 bachelor's degrees.
Really?
Yeah, in community psychology and chemical dependency counseling. And I have to pass a statistics class in order to get my degree. So I'm kind of stuck on that. But that was good until I was like 35. I don't really know what happened when I was 35. But it was all in this time frame. I got my second husband. I got divorced from Devin's dad when he was, as soon as I had Devin. We were only married like a year. So we got divorced, and I met my second husband, and he came from a well-to-do family. I didn't have any kids with him, but I had 9 miscarriages with him, and he was very abusive. He beat me up a lot. I don't know. That was just a rough time. But nothing. I mean, other than that, nothing really drastic went. Other than that, apparently, I did really good during that time. I worked full time, went to school full time. I get stuck on that one. But I met Trin's dad after that. Shortly after that. And I got pregnant right away with Trinity, and I'd been waiting my entire life to have that kid. She was everything I wanted. There's nothing I wanted more than a baby. After all the miscarriages, my second husband and stuff, I was ready to have. I wanted a baby, and I was just getting ready to graduate. But then I got pregnant with Trinity, and I had to go on bed rest right away because I started spotting, and I just freaked out because I thought I was going to miscarry again. And then I married her dad, and I was trying to do right by her. Sorry, Trin, but I didn't love her dad, and it wasn't like that. I actually met him online, and I just said, "I'll pay you to get me pregnant. I don't want a husband. I don't want nothing. I just want a baby. That's all I want." And it didn't go away. And he didn't go away. But I got Trinity, and I was happy for a while until my grandma died. And then that was, like, in my mind, and when my grandma died, it's all been downhill since then. Just one thing after the other. I didn't handle that well. I wasn't prepared for it. But it was very traumatic for me. I think that was the first time. It was right after Grandma died. Let's see, when did I?
07.
07, okay. I guess I got divorced from Bobby in 2010 because I wasn't happy. Like, we weren't happy. He was cheating on me all the time. And I had some stuff happen when Bobby was gone on a trip that, like, just it spiraled me out of control, just triggered me a lot to I got raped, and it triggered me a lot to just spiral out, and I didn't know how to handle it, and I didn't tell anybody. And you knew, right? I told you this, right? I don't remember now if I told you or not, but so for me, I got really depressed after that, and I didn't leave I tried really hard not to ever leave my house. But even then, I just stayed in my bedroom. Trin was a baby, so she would come in, and she'd lay on the bed with me, and we'd play all day long on the bed, but then I didn't leave the bed if I didn't have to. And that was it, how it was until I just couldn't take it anymore, and I left Bobby. And then I met Dusty. Oh, and Bobby and I had a really bad, rough breakup. It was really rough. There was a lot of lies going around, and it did not go well. But I did end up getting full custody of the kids because he went to Oklahoma. And then I started dating Dusty. And my entire life is, like, insulated with who I started dating. Who was, at one point in time, I would have told you he was the love of my life, like Prince Charming. The first man I ever loved, period. Besides my dad, you know. And he's the one who, you know, Bobby introduced me to meth because he did it, but he said it wasn't something for girls to do. That was just something guys did on the weekend warrior thing. He's like, if they get together, they hang out, and that's it. He didn't mention they hang out in motels with girls, hang out for their alone time. That was what they did. And I was pretty naive about that, I guess. But with Dusty had had a long history with drug addiction, and so we started meth. And I had never done uppers before because I knew that I would fucking love them. Like, yeah, and I just knew. I had always I did, like, mini thins when I was in high school and stuff, like ephedrine pills that you buy at the gas station. But I had never done any hard drugs before that. And at this point, I'm like 35 years old. And I'm an alcohol and drug counselor, for crying out loud. I worked at a halfway house for women and their children. And I just full on went in the meth game. I started shooting up right out of the gate, too. I didn't even smoke it. And that lasted for a year before social services stepped in. And social services stepped in because I sold a bag to my ex-husband. And he turned me in. And then it was all coinciding where my son had ran away from home. He didn't run away from home. I say that wrong, but I found out my son was molested by my uncle too. And my son Devin lived with my brother. Because I didn't know what to do. I thought I'd really failed my son. And that was hard. That just increased my usage more. Social services came, and Trinity didn't come home on the bus. And they went and told me what happened with my daughter. And she went to her dad's. Her dad came back from Oklahoma just for the sheer purpose to get Trinity from school for social services. And that was hard because, like, we had never been apart at that point. I had never been away from her, and not overnight or anything like that. She was little. She didn't have sleepovers with friends or anything yet. She's in kindergarten, and so it was really hard. And Bobby and he was so angry with me, and he just wasn't cooperating at all with me or with social services or anything. And it took me 18 months to get her back. And I went to treatment, and I did everything, but they were just always like, "Well, I know you did everything, but you still just don't feel comfortable yet." And they sent it to family court. They closed my CPS file and sent it to family court without ever giving me any custody back or anything. And then we did what they call it, mediation. Yeah, and they determined that we should have joint custody. Well, initially they determined that I should have physical custody because I was willing to work with him and he was not willing to work with me. But then we agreed upon joint custody, 50-50. I'm sure Trin will tell you that was really hard on her. Even though we were trying to make it easy, Bobby and I just could not get along to save our souls. Like, we couldn't even talk. At one point in time, we had to have a notebook in the backpack so we could communicate what was going on with our daughter because we could not communicate without a fight. And losing my kids was the worst experience of my life, hands down worst experience. Well, okay, that was up until Layla, but still.
Still losing your kid.
Yeah. Dusty had 2 kids, Layla and Gavin. They were, for all practical purposes, they were my stepkids. Dusty and I never got married, but they were 1 and 2, and we were together for like 8 years. And the kids were all, Gavin, Trinity, and Layla, they were all 9 months apart. I always called them my Irish triplets because the girls were the same age. They were in the same class. And I dressed them up all cutesy and everything. And
we designated colors too.
Yep. Trin had purple, Layla had pink. The exact opposites too. Like Trinity was, Trinity, she's just like me. And Layla was like blonde, super skinny, and just, she wanted nothing more than to grow up and have babies. Whereas Trinity was like, ew, babies, I don't want nothing to do with that. When Layla was 15, she committed suicide. And I don't know why. I wasn't there, obviously. But those 2, losing my kids, period, any which way it was the hardest thing. And I still consider them my kids, even though we weren't together. And Layla, or Trinity, I know considers Layla her sister.
Sexually abused.
Me?
No, Layla.
I don't know that.
Oh, I do.
How do you know that?
Layla had been sexually abused by a man since,
Who?
I think,
Somebody that
in Minneapolis.
Wasn't it somebody that was hanging with Ariel?
Yes, he was babysitting, and he had been molesting her since the age of 5 to 8. And he did get convicted, and he was sentenced to 6 years. He was 63 years old. Layla, like I said, only 5. After that, Layla was teased, and she just couldn't cope, and she hung herself at 15.
You good to keep going, Mama?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that? You didn't know that?
No one tells me anything.
I just found out at her graduation. I just found out too.
That right there is the hardest thing is once they ever thought I was doing meth, they just cut me out of everything altogether. Like I couldn't do nothing. Nothing. And the thing was, they were all fucking doing it too. I just got caught. And I got the worst. They literally like I was nothing. Everybody in my life cut me out like I was nothing. Like I moved to California and no one noticed for 6 months. I mean, you weren't there. You weren't in Florida. I was in Minnesota. No one even knew. I could have died in that apartment and no one would have known I was there. No one gave a shit. And then they wonder why now I don't give a shit. Because matching energy. Get what you give. And they gave me nothing. They get nothing from me, and I don't feel bad for them at all. You know, it is what it is, but right. So through all of it, but back to when I lost Trinity, I went through a period of, I got her back at 18 months. I had a job as a apartment manager, and then I relapsed. And by the luck, some type of luck, I didn't get any legal trouble from that job, but it did. I ended up, Dusty and I broke up after that because he couldn't handle me being relapsing and using. But I always said, he had a long experience with drug addiction. I didn't, and not as an addict, and so I wasn't quite done yet. And they sent me to an inpatient treatment. I was not having that. I'd been sober for like 9 months at that point, and they didn't believe me, even though I passed all the drug. I did not fail a single drug test. I passed everything. So they sent me into an inpatient 9-month treatment. But this was actually after I did fail one drug test, but it came back as a false positive. And that was the one that cost me my daughter, though. They didn't get the false positive results back until 3 months after they took the UA for some reason, and it just didn't, because it was all screwed up. They knew what they were going to do with me before I even did anything. And I feel like it was a conspiracy. Well, kind of. My uncle brought a lot of drugs into Hutchinson. When I was interviewed by them, all they cared about was the drugs coming in and out. They didn't care about him molesting my son or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And they didn't care about my problems I was having with my custody of her. And they didn't give a shit. I didn't give the answers they wanted, so they made sure I didn't get what I wanted. I don't know.
Then you come to California.
Yep, I came to California. I've been homeless out here for 8 years. I came to San Diego because that was the only town in California I could remember at the time. And social services bought me a ticket home because I told them I broke down in South Dakota and I was from California. And off the top, I got I think it was at San Diego because my second husband was from here. And I slept down on Commercial Street in San Diego, and we weren't allowed to have tents back then. And I went home for a year when Trinity was having some trouble. She had, I think, threatened suicide, and her dad called me when you were like 13. Well, this is what your dad told me, is that you threatened suicide and that I had to come home. So I came back, and I turned myself in because I had a warrant out for wrongfully obtaining public assistance from when my son went to live with my brother. He was on medical assistance, and I didn't cancel it or whatever. And I came home, turned myself in. I did 90 days in jail, got out, only to have her dad tell me that she didn't want anything to do with me again. And that kind of caused a couple screws to blow up in my brain or something, because I felt like he was doing the same thing to me he did before. And with him, it has been a constant. He uses her against me. He'd be like, you can come home and see your daughter anytime you want to, but as long as you screw me, And I don't badmouth. I really don't. It looks bad now because she's sitting right here, but I don't badmouth her dad in front of her. She found out all that information all on her own. My entire existence was to have her. I always say that. But my entire childhood and adulthood is all abuse. I don't have a single healthy relationship in my life. Trinity is probably the most healthiest relationship I have in my life. Sorry, Mom, but we still have a lot of toxic. But I keep trying because what else am I gonna do?
Because we have to.
Yeah, I have choice. Okay, take your arm back. But now my focus is, she's turned 18, so now I think about what example, all I think about is what example I'm leaving for her, because now that's all there is. She's been raised. And hopefully, I hope I saved her from a little bit of my crazy by not being around, but I hoped I made things better too. I'm probably the most active parent as you can be 2,000 miles away from your kid.
You're probably more active than my dad is.
Yeah.
We live together.
We do video talks all the time, and we talk on the phone daily. But now she's going to college, and she's all.
So Trinity, tell me your story.
Okay, wow. Well,
Let's hear your version of the story.
okay. I'm going to be completely honest. I think everything starts with when I was born. Because when I was born, I was like automatically just genetically predisposed to not have a great life. A lot of the stuff I'm diagnosed with right now is stuff I was born with and I just can't fix. But I think my biggest trauma, I guess, happened when I was 3 or 4 years old. And by that time, my mom and Dusty and then Layla and Gavin, we were all living together. And then they also had the roommates. Cassie, DJ, Calvin, and then that one old-ass dude. Cannot remember his name. We called him Santa, though. But around that time, and this is the first and only time this ever happened, I was molested by my brother Gavin. And I didn't tell anybody because I didn't know that I was molested until I was about 11 or 10 years old. And I still never told anybody. I was too late now. Didn't really affect me because I hold nothing against my brother. Because I know that he had a really shitty childhood too, and if Layla was touched at that age, he probably was as well. So I don't really hold anything against him. He's still we still have a pretty good relationship. We're really good friends and stuff. But yeah, and then let me give me a think. A couple of years after that was when I got taken away from my mom for the first time, and that was terrible. About as terrible as you can be, because I wasn't close with my dad. I didn't really know my dad, because Mom said before, he left for 9 months, almost a year, and didn't know him very well. At least I don't remember knowing him very well and being that close to him. And I was with him and his girlfriend at the time and her kid, and I was in a house full of people I didn't really know very well and I didn't like very well. And I really just missed my mom. I actually don't really remember the entire 18 months I wasn't with her because it was just that hard. I didn't have a lot of friends, and I just didn't live it with my dad anymore. But then I was finally back with her, and that was really awesome. Still wasn't very close with my dad. He likes to think we were, but we weren't. I don't know. I've always felt a weird disconnect from him. I was talking about it with Mom a couple months ago. I feel he didn't actually want me to be in his life. It was mostly a get back at Mom thing or possession thing because he's a very possessive person. And I kind of feel now that he's got me, he resents me because I'm not what he wanted me to be or what he expected, because I have 4 other siblings from him. We're all half siblings, and he hasn't raised a single one of them. I'm the only one he's had for over a decade, because my oldest brother, which was Devin, but then my second oldest brother, Colton, Dad was in and out of his life his entire childhood. Colton had to go to foster care a couple of times. Then there's Dylan, and I actually don't know Dylan at all. I've never met him before, but I know he's around the same age as Devin and Colton. And he did something a couple of years ago, landed himself into either a prison or it's a mental hospital, and he's been there for probably over a decade down in Oklahoma. Then, my sister Haley, Dad wasn't there. She lived with her grandma most of her life. I'm close with my sister Haley. Then there's Michaela. I don't know Michaela at all, but I do know that she lives in Minnesota, and Dad gave her up.
He signed over his rights to her.
Yeah, he signed over rights to her. And then I might have another mystery sibling because my dad got around.
He has babies in pairs, but with 2 different women at the same time.
Yeah.
All the kids are like 3 months apart.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dylan and Colton, they're 3 months apart.
Yep.
Michaela and Haley are 3 months apart, and Trinity and the other baby are like 3 months apart.
And there might even be more, to be honest.
Now you got a vasectomy after you.
Yeah, but even before that. And also vasectomy is not always effective.
It's effective, trust me.
But and with my dad, living with him, there was a lot of women in and out of my life. It kind of felt like he knew how much that my mom meant to me and how much I loved my mom, and it felt like he was kind of trying to replace her with other women. So then he'd have more control over me because I wasn't with my mom. And then, I had a lot of, like, step-siblings, I guess, because he would raise us as siblings, and we would be, like, as good as siblings, and then he'd break up with their moms, and then it'd be like, they're not your siblings, stop saying that. And it was, like, very confusing for a child, I guess, to sort of understand. I understand it now, and I think it's kind of bullshit. But yeah. And then, like Mom said, when I was 13, I had a mental health crisis. I was suicidal, but I wasn't threatening to kill myself. I don't know where he got that from. And then I ended up in a mental hospital for a couple of days where I got on medication. That was top 10 worst decisions ever, I feel like. Because, I hated being on the meds. It was, like, terrible, and I'd get yelled at or I'd get grounded every time I got off them or I tried to get off them, because I didn't want to be on them anymore. I was taking, I wasn't even 13, I was 12. I was 12 years old, and I was taking 30 milligrams of Lexapro every day, which I don't know if you know anything about Lexapro, but Lexapro, it changes the way your brain is wired a little bit. Hypothetically, let's say, like, your emotions, like, usually off of it when you have things like depression, anxiety, stuff like that, when you're off it, your emotions are up here. All Lexapro brings everything down to here. So you're not sad, but you're also not happy. You're in this weird, like, I don't know, it's like everything just feels gray.
It should be noted, too, that your dad, for your experience stuff, your dad was diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic. Yeah. And that was untreated for many, many years.
Oh, yeah.
Many, many years. And
it's still being untreated.
I thought he was on meds now.
Yeah, not for the schizophrenia.
Because he's supposed to be on meds, but he would think things really happened. Like, he testified in court on stuff that happened on divorce that never happened. And to combat that, and I know that Trin's had an experience too, because, like, he wouldn't let her outside for the longest time. He taught her to be scared of, like, the outdoors. Like, something bad was going to happen out there. And
no, that was me. We'll get that part of the story later, because I also got diagnosed with schizophrenia.
What?
Yes.
When?
Like a couple months ago. I got diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. Because my dad, when he got diagnosed, I'm telling the story all wrong, but like a couple months ago, it's fine. He got diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, as well as ADHD. And he wanted me to go in just to make sure, like, do I have this stuff? I got diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So they're not technical diagnoses, but with paranoid schizophrenia and then bipolar 2 disorder, I got diagnosed with both of them. It was put down in my notes with my therapist to be like, she needs to go in for a professional diagnosis because, like, this sounds exactly like what she has. But yeah, lost my train of thought. But yeah, and then when I was 13, I went to that hospital, and then not even like 2 or 3 months later, I was back in the hospital again because my dad found out I was self-harming and I was suicidal, and then they decided to send me to the shitty mental health hospital in Minnesota because I wasn't suicidal enough, which I think was kind of bullshit because that made me more suicidal being there. And I hate that hospital, never go there again. It's the Mayo Clinic in Rochester. Yeah, they took away my clothes, they took away like everything. I wasn't even allowed to interact with people. And I sat there for 5 days and I didn't eat. I only slept. And every time I was on the phone with my dad, I begged him, like, please let me go home. Like, I did not want to be there anymore. I wasn't allowed to see him either, and he was like my only person from the outside world, like the outside world, like, because I was only there for a couple of days, but it felt like forever. It was really bad. And then I got out of the hospital. Nothing changed. Immediately started cutting again. And then my dad met his new girlfriend, who I also really did not like. I didn't like a lot of his girlfriends. One of the biggest reasons my mom got taken away from me and why dad kept, like, I feel like he had something to do with the fact that, like, I never saw her again, was this one girlfriend, Christine. And for some unknown reason, Christine hated my mom. And I've always been somebody, and I'm trying not to be just easily influenced and all day. My dad hated my mom. My sister, who I was living with who was living with us, Haley, she hated my mom. Christine hated my mom. Everybody hated my mom. And I had sort of been influenced to also hate my mom, despite the fact that my mom is one of my favorite people in the entire world. I love my mom. I know, like, if I hate everybody in the world, I know for a fact I'm not going to be hating my mom. My mom's, like, everything to me. And Dad was talking about how one time at, like, a choir concert for me, my mom was acting weird. And I was like, yeah, I noticed that too. And he was like, I think she was on drugs. And I'm like, I don't know what that looks like. I'm 10 or 11 at this point. Like, I don't know what being on drugs means. And I was like, or like what it looks like. And I was like, sure, maybe. And that drove him to immediately call McLeod County Police Department or whatever, whoever he needed to call, to tell him, Nikki's on drugs again. Over a basis claim by an 11-year-old.
I wasn't on drugs. I know I was.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's how I got, that's how that happened, and I kind of blamed myself for a while because I felt like it was my fault. And my dad would ask me sometimes to be like, so do you want to see your mom? Do you want to call your mom? And I was really mad at, like, just everybody in general, and so I'd be like, no, I don't want to do that right now. And he'd always, for some reason, take it as never again. I don't want to ever see her ever again, which wasn't what I was saying. And every time he's told her, like, she doesn't want anything to do with you anymore, it's always been, I don't want to do anything right now because I don't want to talk right now. I don't even want to talk to you right now.
Hey, just so you know, none of this is your fault. None. I know. We didn't do right by you.
Yeah. But yeah, with, when I was 14, my dad met this new woman, who shockingly, despite like all of his other girlfriends that he's ever had, was pretty mentally stable. She had a great job. She was taking really good care of her kids. She took care, kids. She took great care of me. And I think, to be honest, no offense to you, Mom, this is like, if he was ever going to find a replacement mom for me, that'd be the lady.
I love Afra to death.
Yes. Her name's Afra. She's amazing. I love her to death, too.
I used to do daycare for her.
Yeah. But yeah, Afra's really awesome. I hated her when she was dating my dad because there was a lot of miscommunication between the two of us. And he was, I found out one thing that they fought a lot about and why, like, her kid, which I didn't like her kid when they were dating for some reason. I found out, like, a lot of why they didn't get along was because Dad was abusing her kid. Because he did that with all of his other girlfriends, younger children who were on the spectrum. For some reason, it is like a...
It doesn't have anything to do with the spectrum.
It is. I feel like it does have to do with something like that.
He likes...
like he just like is a... I don't know.
He will tell you he likes children until they're able to walk and talk and make decisions on their own, and then they don't. He can't control them, so it's
yeah.
Very much.
But yeah, and then they broke up like a year later or something because he was cheating on her. No surprise there. But yeah, and then it was just me and him, which it hadn't been just me and him for years. Actually, I don't think it's ever been just me and him. And that's sort of where our problems together started. Like, really, like, came to light. Because there was nobody for us to buffer off of. I was at a new school, too. I was in a new city as well. I didn't know anybody who wasn't over an hour away from us. So I was extremely isolated. And there wasn't really, like, many places for me to get away, I guess. Yeah, I was doing pretty okay, I guess, until November of 2022. Me and my dad got into a huge fight. I don't even remember what it was about. Actually, I do. It's because I didn't do the dishes. And then that escalated into him, and me telling him that I didn't feel like I was ever going to live up to the standards that he had for me, and him telling me that, I don't even remember what he said to me, but it was just, I don't know, we went back and forth for a really long time. He called my mom, and he was asking her something, kept like yelling at her. She was like, I'm not having this conversation with you. And she only would yell back at him to be like, stop yelling at our kid. Like, what are you doing? He called my mom. He threatened to call the police on me. I don't even remember what I was doing, to be honest. And then he asked me, he was like, you don't want to live here anymore, do you? And I was like, not particularly. And he agreed to go let me stay with my Aunt Paige for a while, at least until like I graduated, which I was going to do, but I told him no because I wanted to graduate from the school I was already at. And also about a week later, I found out that my sister had killed herself, and he held on telling me because up until that point I didn't have any social media at all.
He didn't tell you right away?
No. I didn't have any social media, like, at all. I wasn't allowed to have social media for the longest time because I wasn't allowed to have a phone for the longest time because my dad thought that my mom would find out a way to track me or find out, like, things about me that she wasn't supposed to know despite the fact that she's my mom.
Yeah, that's the time. At that point in time, Bobby I had no contact with Trinity at all.
Yeah.
He had cut me out there altogether.
Yeah, and so I knew something was wrong, I guess. I remember that night, despite the fact that I didn't know, very, very distinctly. Because I was on the phone with my friends, and I just felt like this, like, sick feeling. Like, I just felt, like, super nauseous all of a sudden. And I was like, I'm going to text my sister, because, like, I didn't talk to Layla in a while. I didn't talk to her since May of 2021, I think. So it'd been a hot minute since I last spoke to her. No, not 2021. 2022. It would have been, no? Yeah. It would, yep. Yeah, May of 2021. I hadn't talked to her in a while, so I was like, I'm going to text Layla. But then I decided not to because I didn't want to be weird. Because me and Layla and Gavin and Dusty, after Mom left, I wasn't allowed to have contact with them. When Dad got full custody of me, I wasn't allowed to talk to Layla, Gavin, Dusty, Grandma, my brother. I wasn't even allowed to talk to my family in Nebraska until they got like the clearance from him or whatever. They were in contact with my mom and that they wanted to talk to me. So I had felt extremely disconnected from them, I guess, and I didn't want to be weird, so I didn't text them, which, thinking back on it now, I really wish I had. And then he told me, 3 days later, that she killed herself. And he wasn't a very great person to help support me at the time. Because he didn't like Layla, he didn't like Gavin, he didn't like Dusty.
She liked Ariel.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Trinity, do you feel like, after hearing the other two stories we just heard, that this dysfunction gets handed down from generation to generation to generation?
Yeah.
And do you see yourself doing anything to break that cycle?
God, I fucking hope so, dude. Like, genuinely, like mom said before, like, I never wanted kids when I was younger, but, like, now that I'm getting older, I'm like, I might want to have kids someday. Like, maybe, perhaps, I don't know. And I want to be a good mother. I want to be a good parent of, like, a kid. And I don't want to make the same mistakes that...
And drugs are part of your life or no?
Right now, I do dabble. We'll say that. Not with anything, like, hardcore, but, like, you know, when I'm with my cousins or something, we'll, like, get super drunk for the weekend. We'll smoke pot sometimes.
You think that's a smart move?
I think I'm allowed to do what I want now because I'm a teenager. I have the freedom.
That wasn't the question.
Oh. I don't know.
I do.
What?
You know the answer to that question.
Like, what do you mean?
Do you think it's smart to do that stuff? I know you know the answer.
I'm allowed to be dumb right now. So
yes,
like,
you are. You are totally entitled to
I just know that, like, because of how it's affected my family, I'm never going to do anything hardcore like that. Like, I trust in myself.
Do you?
I do. And I know that, like, if I ever do get anything hardcore like that, I can call you guys up and be like, hey,
No,
send me to
don't.
rehab.
I mean, yes, call me, but don't call me. I mean, call me, but don't, because look at my best decisions I've ever made in my entire life landed me here.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Okay.
Whenever you're talking to an addict, their best decisions got them right where they're at, right there.
Yeah. All right.
But call me because I want to be there for you, and I'm not. I still put you first, or I try to anyway.
Yeah.
It's difficult to end generational trauma because you're raised in it and you don't know different. And we can't do better till we know different.
I mean, like, if that's what you grew up in, that's all you know.
Yeah, it's all about perception, though. I always like the peanut butter sandwich, a grilled cheese sandwich. My grandma taught me how to make a grilled cheese sandwich. And so for years, I always thought that when you make a grilled cheese sandwich, you butter both sides of the bread, like the inside and the outside. Yeah. Because that's what she told me. She's like, take a piece of bread, butter both sides of the bread, put it on the cheese and fry it, right? Yeah. And I thought, wow, these are some soggy sandwiches. There's a lot of butter to be on both sides of the bread like that. Now, I buttered both sides of the bread. So 2 pieces of bread, each side, it was, so there's inside and outside, where she meant flip the sandwich over and butter the other side. Mm-hmm. Do you get what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was all about perception.
Perception.
I perceive things way differently than other people do. My brain doesn't work like that.
But the one thing that the three of us have, and I think is our greatest thing, is love. Because we've never separated, except when people have caused our separation. But I've never stopped loving my daughter. I've never stopped loving any of my children. But we have a bond.
We do, and I love you very much, and you know I love it, and I love Trinity more. I would do anything for Trinity, and I feel, maybe it's just me because I'm in the situation I'm in, but I still feel we have a long ways to go yet. I mean, maybe it's never anything. We always said I like drama, so I just like to create things, but, it's hard to heal from that childhood stuff.
It is hard.
But I've done far worse damage to myself as an adult than I ever did as a child, so.
Well, I think that's the effect of trauma. You're either a predator or you prey in this life.
Or you can flip back and forth.
Or you can go back and forth, I guess, too. But it's the damage we do to ourselves, at least for me.
We're our own worst enemies.
We definitely,
Exactly.
most definitely are.
I see that very clearly after doing 10,000 of these talks. Yeah. Like we are the worst person in our life.
Everything seems so simple, so simple. I'm a good therapist. I really am a good therapist, even now to this day. And I was on the dean's list and everything. I was a straight A student. I'm a good therapist because I can tell people what they should do in their life, but I think I can tell myself my own life. I ain't doing that shit. It's hard. You know? But those who can't do, teach.
All right, ladies, thank you so much for sharing your stories.
Yeah.
Super interesting to see the 3 generations of this.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, I wish you guys lots of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
When I was designing the first Softwood Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.